All right, good evening, everyone. So we're going to pick up in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna today. We are on the chapter called Sri Ramakrishna at Shyampukur. And if you remember last week, we were talking about the different types of characteristics that a realized person can have, that they can be like a child that's 5 years old, or they can be like an inert log. Just the different ways that we can manifest Satchit Ananda inside. It's an interesting question because realization, what do we realize? We realize that there was no us, there was no individual me, that I by nature am a universal, that I am the container of things. And we think, what an odd thing. But again, I always come back to the dream. It's not odd at all that a dream takes place within us, and that we have the illusion of being in the dream, but we are not. We are the container of the dream, and that in that dream we are equally everything. We are not just the individual named. And so this is what it is to be realized. It is to be in the dream and to know that its nature is a dream, and that you are not by anything more than convenience the particular named person in the dream, but that you're equally everything in that dream. Everything in that dream is made of the same substance, that mind stuff. And so today he picks up, after having listed off these different types of realized folks and what they look like, he gives off or starts talking about the reason that most of us are not enjoying this realized state, the reason that we're not sitting there in God bliss at this moment, ecstatic and completely out of our bodies, in divine wonder. He picks up in the middle, he says, and then there is the ego of old age, right? And ego is what? Ego is this idea of ourself that we've adopted really to make us comfortable. We live in a world that we don't know the first thing about. We say, oh, we're a material, but then ask what matter is. Well, we really don't know. And then the new argument is, no, we're consciousness. Well, what's consciousness? And we don't have an answer for that either. And so we kind of ignore the things that we don't know, and we make up a lot of things about ourselves to keep ourselves comfortable in this world, to give us the illusion of being in control, to give ourselves and sustain our illusion that we plan and make things happen, when really all we do is shoot for things we'd like to happen and change our mind accordingly as the plans seem to not be working out. And yet when we get to that plan itself, even though it's radically different than it was, the ego will tell us we planned it. We did a great job. This party, which was supposed to be a movie, was a great feat of planning, and good for you, and here you are enjoying your time. So he's saying that this ego that envelops our mind, that's basically built on memory, built on the past, gives us a sense of me that's unique from others, and gives me a vehicle with senses on it with which to explore this imagined world that we're in. So he starts with this ego of old age. An old man has many shackles. He's shackled by caste, by pride, by shame, by hatred and fear. Furthermore, he is bound by the ideas of worldly cleverness, calculating intelligence, and deceit. If he is angry with anybody, he cannot shake it off easily. Perhaps he keeps the feeling for as long as he lives. Again, there is the ego of scholarship and the ego of wealth. The ego of old age is an unripe ego. Turning to the doctor, there are a few men who cannot attain knowledge of God. Men proud of their scholarship, proud of their education, or proud of their wealth. If you speak to such people about a holy man and ask them to visit him, they will make all kinds of excuses and will not go. But in their heart of hearts they think, why, we are big people ourselves. Must we go and visit someone else? And so this notion of egoism built on these different attributes that we have, which is odd because you may have become wealthy, and there's nothing wrong with being wealthy. What the measure of the quality of a person isn't to the wealth, it would be what they do with their wealth. And so, but a person can become wealthy and take that on as an identity, even though they were born in this world penniless. And so what does that wealth have to do with you? When you die, you leave it behind. So how could it have been an attribute of you? And so it is with these things, these other things, proud of their education. You were dumb as a rock at one point in your life, and contentedly so, as you sat there eating baby food out of mama's arms, not knowing a thing. And it didn't matter. You were the same person then that you are now. But now you're educated, and so we've become proud. I've been educated at this university or at this space. I've got a particularly difficult major, right? Proud of their wealth, proud of their scholarship, proud of their education. A characteristic of tamas, right? There's three quasi-elements that this universe is created from: tamas, rajas, and sattva, right? Tamas is that inertia, that which it contracts, that which doesn't like to move, doesn't like to change, that which is depressed or just stuck. And then we've got rajas, which is that active person, the person who can't sit still, vibrating off the stovetop all the time, gotta do. And then there's sattva, which is sort of not even really an element in and of itself. It's more the perfect balance between rajas and tamas, right? And so if you're a person with a tamasic disposition, which means you're lazy or you don't like to move a whole lot, or I was once described as being more of a contemplative person. And so if you're a tamasic type person, then quite often your teacher will tell you, do rajasic things to get out of that state, So I once really struggled with depression, and one of the things that used to help with that depression was that when it was really dark, I would go and grab $5 out of my piggy bank, and I would go for a walk, and as I walked out of the monastery, I'd pray to Mother saying, okay, I'm going to give away this $5, earth-changing, but show me somebody who could use this $5. And I went and I took my walk, and I just noticed and watched and noticed and watched as I walked until I found somebody that could use that $5. And it was a wonderful help to breaking out of that cycle of depression. If I had just stayed there in the building with no one around and just sat there doing whatever I was going to do, I would have spiraled, just sat there spinning in that darkness about all the different memories and things about myself I didn't like. So for getting out of tamas, rajas is your best medicine, action, right? Just make yourself get up and go do something. It's one of those things, I noticed when getting up in the morning was a bigger challenge for me. You'd lay there and the alarm would go off at 5:30 and you'd be like, I don't think so. I got just another 20 minutes, right? And the funny thing is you sit there putting it off, right? Another 20 minutes, another half an hour, another 45 minutes. Are you getting any sleep? No. Are you enjoying laying there? No. Why? Because you feel icky about the compromise the whole time. And there you are, still doing it, right? That gives you a big clue as to why spiritual life is hard. It's not that spiritual life is hard. It's that we don't like it. We've got an ego that makes us very comfortable or comfortable enough, and we stick with it. And we can't see past it. You know how they describe Maya as a veil? This is that veil. This story of you is the reason you cannot see God. And this story of us is so thick that we even begin to doubt the possibility of a God. It makes us so convinced that the world fits into our simple set of parameters that God is no longer necessary. So a characteristic of tamas is pride. Pride and delusion come from tamas. It is said in the Purana that Ravana had an excess of rajas, Kumbhakarna of tamas, and Bibhishana of sattva. That is why Bibhishana was able to receive the grace of Rama. Another characteristic of tamas is anger. Through anger, one loses one's wits and cannot distinguish between right and wrong. In a fit of anger, Hanuman set fire to Lanka, without thinking for a moment that the fire might also burn down the hut where Sita was living. Still another feature of man's tamas is lust. Girindra Ghosh of Paturiyagata once remarked, "Since you cannot get rid of your passions, your lust, your anger, and so on, give them a new direction. Instead of desiring worldly pleasures, desire God. Have intercourse with Brahman. If you cannot get rid of anger, then change its direction. Assume the tamasic attitude of a lover of God and say, 'What? I've repeated the hallowed name of Durga, and shall I not be liberated? How can I be a sinner anymore? How can I be bound anymore?'" Right? If you cannot get rid of temptation, direct it toward God. Be infatuated with God's beauty. If you cannot get rid of pride, then be proud to say that you are a servant of God, that you are a child of God. Thus, turn the 6 passions toward God. This is actually a very powerful teaching, although not one that's easily understood, but it works out. It's got some wonderful things in it when you realize that everything that you desire, every desire of your body is holy. Right? There is a wonderful poem by Hafiz where he says that 3 times. Every desire of your body is holy. 3 times, so he really meant it. And I was having a little bit of a crisis when I was reading that, because I was sitting, wait, everything in spiritual life has told me this isn't so. What are you saying? What are you saying? And I had to sit and think about that poem for a long time before I understood what he was saying. All of our desires are, in fact, holy, because we have only one desire, and that one desire is for union, for pure love, for God, if you will. But that one desire gets split up, through our 5 senses, gets split up. And so the way back to understanding that your only desire in God is to sit and think about the object that you're desiring, right? Take a look at it and think to yourself, mind, just tell me, what is it about that object that you want? Name it. Tell me in a sentence what it is. Get it down to a single word description if you can. Because you'll always find that that which you are seeking in other things is a name of God. In money, what are you looking for? You're looking for power, perhaps. Well, God is omnipotent. If it's, relationships, you're looking for that unity, for that oneness. If it's friendship, you're looking for that security. See, all of these things that you're looking for in objects are names of God. And so through our discernment, which is what our spiritual practice is, we go through and we look at our desires and we boil them until all the water's gone and there's just that crispy little residue left in the pan. And we say, what was that? What was it I really wanted? Right? Ramakrishna gives that fantastic and gross example, telling his young boys about lust with women. He's saying, think about it. What is there in a woman to desire? Right? He says, if you go in there and cut them open, it's just blood and pus and bile and bones. What of that do you want, right? What is that in there? I remember trying to use that when I was a brahmachari and taking a walk in San Francisco one day and seeing some beautiful person across the street. And I froze them in my mind, and I held them in my mind's eye, and I walked around them, and I said, tell me, mind, what is it that you search out in that person? Is it a body part? Here's a knife. Go and take the body part you want. And of course you recoil. Oof. Oh, okay, well then you can have the whole body. Here, just kill them. Let the body lay there, it's all yours. And of course you recoil again. You're like, well, what are you seeing then, O mind? If the body and a part of the body is not going to satisfy you, what is it? And you come to see that it was the life in the body was necessary for that attraction to happen. It was the one essential thing for that attraction to happen. And so you come to realize, I must have been looking for something bigger than just bodies or body parts. I was looking for a unity. I was looking for a togetherness. And so we go through and we break up our desires that way to help us understand what it is that we're really looking for. And when you come to know that your object of lust is really just a list of attributes of God, then with some practice, you can quite easily turn the mind in the proper direction. Because if you are steady in your practice, if you're sincere in your practice, you will get the fulfillment of that pleasure in your practice and not need the objects, because all things come from you. The world you have created for yourself is in fact created by you for yourself. You knitted the ego in the midst of it and chose the direction of life that you're taking. Doctor, it is very hard to control the sense organs. They are like restive horses whose eyes must be covered with blinkers. In the case of some horses, it is necessary to prevent them from seeing at all. Master, a man need not fear anything if but once he receives the grace of God, if but once he obtains the vision of God, if but once he attains self-knowledge, then the 6 passions cannot do him any harm. Eternally perfect souls, like Narada or Prahlada, did not have to take the whole trouble to put blinkers on their eyes. The child who holds the father's hand while walking along the narrow bulk in the paddy field may loosen his hold in a moment of carelessness and slip into the ditch, but it is quite different if the father holds the child's hand. Then the child never falls into the ditch. Right, so you see what he's saying here. It's this faith in the grace of God. How do you know if you've received the grace of God? You're able to forgive yourself. You're able to let go of your karmas. You're able to move past them and make a greater effort. How do you know that you have the grace of God? You sit and do your practice. Your practice, your mantra, your ability to repeat your mantra is a sign of God's grace with you. How do you know God's grace is with you? When you think of the love of the divine, it lifts you. It gives you a boost inside. It gives you energy. It gives you the ability to carry on. How do you know that you have God's grace? Because you exist. And God is existence. And so it is the existence of God that you use in order to exist. Right? Because you're able to love and you're able to feel love. So you know that you have the grace of God. Because God is love, and it is Him that makes it possible for you to feel that, to long for that, to know that. And you're able to grow from your mistakes. You're able to learn from the things that you do wrong and are able to improve, to draw nearer to your ideal. You can do that because you are using intelligence, and God is intelligence, Satchitananda. And so you have to be intimate with God to be able to discern, to be able to grow, to be able to transcend what you think you are into what you are. Doctor, but it is not proper for a father to hold his child by the hand. Okay. Master, it's not quite like that. Great sages have childlike natures. Before God, they are always like children. They have no pride. Their strength is in the strength of God, the strength of their Father. They have nothing to call their own. They are firmly convinced of that. Doctor, can you make a horse move forward without first covering his eyes with blinkers? Can one realize God without first controlling the passions? Master, what you say is according to the path of discrimination. It is known as Jnana Yoga. Through that path, too, one attains God. The Jnanis say that an aspirant must first of all purify his heart. First he needs spiritual exercises, then he will attain knowledge. But God can also be realized through the path of devotion. Once the devotee develops love for the lotus feet of God and enjoys the singing of His name and His attributes, he does not have to make a special effort to restrain his senses. For such a devotee, the sense organs come under control of themselves. Suppose a man has just lost his son and is mourning his death. Can he be in a mood to quarrel with others that very day, or enjoy a feast in the house of a friend? Can he that very day show his pride before others or enjoy sense pleasures? If the moth discovers light, can it remain in darkness any longer? So you see, he's telling us why, actually not on purpose, but telling us why bhakti or devotion is the fastest and most effective path these days, is because the path is love and the destination is love. And so you have that love all the time. And that love that you have for the divine is what kind of pries you out of your bad habits. That you realize, oh, I'm already married, as it were. Why am I being unfaithful? Or the discernment comes in. Why am I running after that? I've had that 10 million times in my life, and here I am at 60 still looking for more. What is that about? Right? And you work with yourself, and you sit there in the shrine with your beloved. And yes, at first it's an exercise. For maybe a few years it's an exercise when you start. I think for me, the first 6 years were the most tortuous years of my life. Because you lose all of your worldly comfort, you lose all of your habits, all of your refuges that you used to take, in the monastery. So they take that all away from you, or you give it all up, depending on your perspective. And you spend that 6 years in the monastery, right? Not being able to have any of the things you've come to depend on, but you haven't developed any of the beauty of a spiritual seeker yet. You haven't touched anything real yet, and so you feel like, gosh, should I keep doing this? Should I keep doing this, right? But you keep going, and eventually, just like Brahmananda promises, if you do this, if you are sincere and you're earnest in your practice for a year, and if you haven't touched bliss, he said, you can come and slap me. And so it's like that. Don't be discouraged, in that. Keep the practice going, because it's promised. It will open for you at some point. And you will see something you don't expect, and it will carry you through many years, for sure. It's the promise of Mother in many places. So if the moth discovers light, can it remain in darkness any longer? Doctor with a smile. Of course it can't. It would rather fly into the flame and perish. Master, oh no, that's not so. A lover of God does not burn himself to death like a moth. The light to which he rushes is like the light of a gem. That light is brilliant, no doubt, but it is also cooling and soothing. That light does not scorch his body. It gives him joy. It gives him peace. One realizes God by following the path of discrimination and knowledge. But this is an extremely difficult path. It is easy enough to say such things as, I am not the body, I'm not the mind or the intellect, I'm beyond grief, I'm beyond disease, I'm beyond sorrow, I am the embodiment of existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute, I am beyond pain and pleasure, I am not under the control of the sense organs. But it is very hard to assimilate these ideas and to practice them. Suppose I see my hand cut by a thorn and the blood gushes out. Then it is not right for me to say, why, my hand is not cut by the thorn, I'm all right. In order to be able to say that, I must first of all burn the thorn itself in the very fire of knowledge. Many people think they cannot have knowledge or understanding of God without reading books. But hearing is better than reading, and seeing is better than hearing. Hearing about Benares is different from reading about it, but seeing Benares is different from either hearing or reading. Those actually engaged in a game of chess do not always judge the moves on the board correctly. The onlookers often judge the moves better than the players. Worldly people often think themselves very intelligent, but they are attached to the things of the world. They are the actual players and cannot understand their own moves correctly. But holy men, who have renounced everything, are unattached to the world. They are really more intelligent than worldly people, since they do not take any part in worldly life. Their position is that of onlookers, and so they see things more clearly. Doctor to the devotees. If he, meaning Sri Ramakrishna, had studied books, he could not have acquired so much knowledge. Faraday communed with nature, but that is why he was able to discover many scientific truths. He could not have known so much from the mere study of books. Mathematical formulas only throw the brain into confusion and bar the path of original inquiry. Master. There was a time when I lay on the ground in the Panchavati and prayed to the Divine Mother, O Mother, reveal to me what the karmis have realized through their ritualistic worship, what the yogis have realized through yoga, and what the jnanis have realized through discrimination. How much I communed with the Divine Mother. How can I describe it all? What a state I passed through. Sleep left me completely. The Master begins to sing, my sleep is broken, how can I slumber any more? For now I am wide awake in the sleeplessness of yoga. O Divine Mother, made one with thee in yoga sleep at last, my slumber I have lulled asleep forevermore. A man has come to me from a country where there is no night. Rituals and devotions have all grown profitless for me. So this notion he's woken, how can I sleep anymore? Brings us right back to that waking up in the morning, right? To get up and go, to be enthusiastic, right? One of the beautiful things that I like to share, even though it's not right here in the text, is just this wonderful opportunity we have in meditation. You know, so often we sit to meditate with the idea of doing something. I'm going to control the mind, or I'm going to purify my heart, or I'm going to see God, or I'm going to be silent inside. We always approach it as an exercise or a doing. But you see, one of the realizations is that we are not the doer. And so you should start your meditation not with a list of to-dos, but with a surrender, right? And not even an effort to describe to God what you need or what you want or what you're looking for. You identify with the silence that is you, and you watch, you sit in communion, and you enjoy your realization to the extent that your acceptance of grace in the moment allows you to, right? So it's you that are determining how much of that freedom you're enjoying in your meditation by how willing and how deeply you are willing to accept the grace of God. Because every religion teaches that final realization is by the hand of grace. And Suzuki, in that book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, the Buddhist does not sit to realize God. The Buddhist sits to know that he is already realized. And so taking that into your practice can really change things quite a bit. To sit there and not make it about something that you have to do, because to do that, you have to assume you don't have something. And that is your error, to assume that you are not what you are, right? And so your meditation is a matter of opening to the truth, accepting the fact, all is well. I'm one with the Beloved. This body is not me. All of its problems will go when it goes. This mind is not me. All of its turmoil will go when it goes, right? And what remains? Bliss, love, wisdom, existence. He continued, I have not read books, but people show me respect because I chant the name of the Divine Mother. Shambhu Malik said about me, here is a great hero without a sword or a shield. Everyone laughs. The conversation turned to the performance of a drama by Girish Ghosh called The Life of Buddha. The doctor had seen the play and had been very much pleased with it. The doctor to Girish, you are a very bad man. Must I go to the theater every day? Master to M, what does he say? I don't quite understand. M, the doctor liked the play very much. Master to Ishan, why don't you say something? Right? Pointing to the doctor, he does not believe that God can incarnate himself in a human form. Ishan, what should I say? I don't like to argue anymore. The master sharply, why? Won't you say the right thing? Ishan to the doctor, our faith is shallow on account of our pride. It is said in the Ramayana that a crow named Bhushandi did not at first accept Rama as an incarnation of God. Once it incurred Rama's displeasure. It traveled through the different worlds, the lunar, solar, and so forth, and through Mount Kailash to escape Rama's wrath. But it found that it could not escape. Then it surrendered itself to him and took refuge at his feet. Rama took the crow in his hand and swallowed it. Thereupon the crow found that it was seated in its own nest in a tree. After its pride had thus been crushed, the bird came to realize that though Rama looked like any other man, yet he contained in his stomach the entire universe, the sky, the moon, the sun, the stars, the oceans, the rivers, men, animals, and trees. All right, so that's just a physical experience there of what we're saying about knowing that the dream is in you, that you are not in the dream. And so here was Rama demonstrating that to this, not poor crow, because for goodness he realized because of it, but but teaching the crow, no, see, you're not in the world. That you are in God. This is all divine. Master to the doctor. It is very difficult to understand that God can be a finite human being and at the same time the all-pervading soul of the universe. The absolute and the relative are his two aspects. How can we say emphatically with our small intelligence that God cannot assume a human form? Can we ever understand all these ideas with our little intellect? Can a one-seer pot hold 4 seers of milk? Therefore one should trust in the words of holy men and great souls, those who have realized God. They constantly think of God as a lawyer of his lawsuits. Do you believe the story of the crow, Bhushandi? Doctor. I accept as much as I want to. All difficulties come to an end if only God reveals his true nature to the seeker. Then can there be no confusion? How can I accept Rama as an incarnation of God? Take the example of his killing Vali, the monkey chieftain. He hid himself behind a tree like a thief and murdered Vali. This is how a man acts, not God. Girish. But sir, such an action is possible only for God. Doctor. Then take the example of his sending Sita into exile. Girish. This too, sir, is possible only for God, not for a man. Ishan to the doctor. Why don't you believe in the incarnation of God? Just now you said that God has form since he has created all these forms, and that God is formless since he has created the mind, which is without form. A moment ago you said that everything is possible for God. Master, laughing. It's not mentioned in his science that God can take human form, so how can he believe it? Listen to a story. A man said to his friend, I have just seen a house fall down with such a terrific crash. Now the friend to whom he told this had received an English education. He said, just a minute, let me go look that up on the internet. Actually the newspaper, but he read the paper but could not find any news of a house falling down with a crash. Thereupon he said to his friend, well, I simply don't believe you. It isn't in the paper, so it's all false. Everyone laughs. Girish to the doctor. You must admit that Krishna is God. I will not let you look on him as a mere man. You must admit that he is either God or a demon. Master. Unless a man is guileless, he cannot so easily have faith in God. God is far, far away from the mind steeped in worldliness. Worldly intelligence creates many doubts and many forms of pride, pride of learning, pride of wealth, and the rest. But he is guileless. How guileless Keshav Sen was. One day he visited the Kali temple at Dakshineshwar. At about 4 p.m, he went around to the guest house where the poor are fed and asked when the beggars would be fed. He didn't know that it was too late in the day for the feeding of the poor. As a man's faith increases, so does his knowledge of God. The crow that discriminates too much about food gives milk in driblets. Or cow, sorry. Sorry, it was a crow for me, I don't know what to say. The cow that discriminates too much about food gives milk in driblets, but the cow that gulps down everything, herbs, leaves, grass, husks, straw, gives milk in torrents. Everyone laughed. God cannot be realized without childlike faith. The mother says to her child, pointing to a boy, he is your elder brother. and the child at once believes that the boy is 100% his elder brother. Again, the mother says that a boogeyman lives in a certain room, and that child believes 100% that the boogeyman lives in that room. God bestows his grace on the devotee who has the faith of this child. God cannot be realized by the mind steeped in worldliness. Right? This is how to put this, because this is an important point, and I know that being very familiar with it is to have a mind steeped in worldliness. You start thinking, well, what? I have to be stupid to realize God? I have to be unteachable to see God, to have faith. And we go back to that idea that faith is believing something for no reason at all. This is not why this is true at all. This is true because you are that divine self within. Your nature is a pure wisdom and a pure being. Your nature is a deep and profound silence that's steeped in wisdom within. And your mind is like having a pair of, AI glasses, artificial intelligence glasses. And you've seen what happens when somebody puts them on, They can't even walk across the room normally anymore because they believe they're balancing on an I-beam high above the street that's being shown to them in the glasses, right? And so they're terrified. You can see tons of videos. Just search for AI, videos on this. And you can see. And so what's happened is that all of our attention is attached to our mind, and through the mind, our senses. And we don't take any of our attention off of that. We love that. We're watching that very closely. But behind us is the beloved, standing there, waiting for some attention, any attention, having all of this joy, all of this wisdom, all of this bliss to share with us. And you say, but how can that possibly be? Well, that's the whole point. Try it. Do enough practice to where you can experience a 1/16 of a second of inner silence. And in that inner silence, it'll be like touching an electrical wire accidentally. Poof! Oh my God, what was that? And then of course you go looking for it again and can't find it because it's objectification that blinds you, right? But when you step backwards into God, not this, not this, not this, watching everything, opening up to the presence like that, you touch that place of silence. And in that moment, you take your eyes off of those AR glasses and you realize where you're standing. You get a sense of your eternity inside. You'll get a sense of this profound peace. You get a sense of this lack of boundary. You get a sense of this expansive nature that has been hidden for you because you've been staring at the mind for your whole life, staring at the changing and not trusting in the unchanging, that you which has always been you, letting everything that would tell you differently fall away, right? To become just that sliver of crystal that is here in the waking state and then slips into another body in the dream for the dream state, that it can take on a whole other life, a whole other set of memories, a whole other body, a whole other circumstance and world, and yet be you. And then when you wake up, it comes back and settles in this. Find out what is that travels between you in your waking state and then becomes you in the dream state and then comes you again in the waking state. That is the real self. That's the true self, the I am. And that is God, that is divine. And through the contemplation of that and the surrendering to that, you become aware of that reality. But aware in a way that cannot be spoken, because you'll be outside of time-space causation when you see it. You'll be outside of subject, object, verb when you feel it. That's why nobody can talk about it. That's why Brahman cannot be soiled by the tongue, Ramakrishna says, because of that one truth alone. And so all that you hope to get through realization, through your practice, is in you now. You're not missing a piece of knowledge. You're missing an acceptance. You're not missing information. You're missing courage to let yourself be undefined, to let yourself be free, to not be locked in the delusion of knowing everything, but being willing to walk out naked and know nothing. That's the requirement for seeing. That's the requirement for knowing. And it's yours the moment you decide that you want that more than anything else that you have. And at that moment, you'll turn around and bump right into the Divine Mother holding a beautiful little package for you to give to you that she's been waiting for many, many, many lifetimes maybe. So that is our reading of the Gospel for today. I had a... Oh no. Let me give you some announcements here while I panic. Oh, for anybody going to read after me, we now have a new little pointer bookmark so you know exactly where we left off. All right. So tomorrow, Swami Chidbrahmananda is going to be giving a lecture on the story of stories, which will sound a lot like what we saw today, but in a different form. And on Monday the 14th at 5 p.m., the Light of Lights, Swami Sarvapriyananda, head of the Vedanta Society of New York, will be speaking. So that's on the 14th, a week from Monday. Followed by a potluck.
Karma Yoga.
Yes, Karma Yoga is on the 12th. Is that on here? Yeah. And then Wednesdays at 5 o'clock is our God Lived With Them class. We're reading about Swami Abhedananda, and Prarajaka Krishna Prana will be teaching that class. All right. Go forward. Don't stop. Jai Ma.
Okay.